It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I am your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. This show is brought to you by emailrevealer.com. Go to emailrevealer.com and you get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You can also get that book on Amazon.com. Also, at my website, emailrevealer.com, we have all kinds of services for you. Asset searches. Let's say, how about this? What if, let's say, you're married to a deadbeat spouse who's not paying child support. We have on there a search called Current Employment Locate, something along those lines, where we could find out where your spouse is employed, and then once we find out where his employment is or her employment is, then you can serve an income execution on their employer to collect the child support that they owe you. We can help you with all that kind of stuff. And all kinds of judgment recovery, too. You know, a lot of these companies who help you out with the child support enforcement or judgment recovery, they want to take a big percentage of what's owed to you. And I wouldn't hurt you like that. If you got a case like that, just hit me up at OppermanInvestigations@gmail.com, and I'll help you out. I'm still getting paid, okay? But I'm not going to take 50%, 30% of what you got coming to you there. Okay, let's see. Don't forget the members section, guys, okay? Really working hard. We're doing a lot of interviews every day of the week. I lost my voice last week. I guess it was Saturday night or Sunday night at a Black Lives Matter march on the Strip, and so I had a really big interview on Monday. I couldn't do it, but my voice is pretty much back now. And the show, as you heard earlier today, by the way, this is live right now. It's 7 p.m. It's on 7/15/2016, and we are live on Awake Radio and People's Internet Radio and Deprogram Radio, Shaz's Radio, and IPM Nation. These are all the stations you can find us live on Friday night. I forgot what I was going to say. Okay. Well, anyway, it's been a rough week, guys. Let's put it that way. Okay, let's see. What's going on? Tomorrow afternoon, I have Tom Dunn. You might... the members section, right. I want to tell people to sign up to the members section because we have a lot of content in there that you won't find on the live shows Friday night or on the live shows Saturday night. It's extra content. Extra shows that we have in there. I'm putting up a show in there right now about O.J. Simpson. It's some really good stuff, and the guest put together a whole timeline. It's going to be exclusive for Opperman Report readers. Just recently, we got to double check with Sean Duff of strawmanmusic.com. If I gave him, I'm not sure if I gave him or not, but I have gotten a copy of the 23-page letter written by Jerry Lefcourt to Jeffrey Epstein's prosecutors, where in that letter, first they describe him as being a member of Council on Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission, but they also say in this letter from Jeffrey Epstein's attorneys that Jeffrey Epstein was responsible for founding the Clinton Foundation. So that's according to Jeffrey Epstein's attorneys. And it's in communications, private communications between Jeffrey's attorneys and the prosecutors. So let's see what's going on with that. How come that's not on the news, guys? You ever wonder that? And wonder why this stuff, all the stuff I talked to you about, never gets on the news. One of us should be supported, and the other one shouldn't be. Let's see who that should be. Me. Support me. Become a member. Even $6 just for 1 month is a big, big help. Okay. Tomorrow, we got Tom Dunn. Tom Dunn just finished his film he's been working on. He works with Russ Dizdar. Got to have Russ Dizdar back. And I did an interview with Tom Dunn. It's in the members section, which is why I remembered that. And it's about occult investigations and stuff like that. So he's going to be on tomorrow on American Freedom Radio. So you can catch that tomorrow at 5 p.m. And it'll also be played, a simulcast on all the other stations I mentioned before. Awake. Oh, by the way, too, I took over Awake Radio. And let's take a look here. I got a whole bunch of hosts coming up. I love to say coming up, don't I? I love to say coming up. I say it so much. It annoys everybody. Let's see here. Okay, Awake Host Method Room. I'm in all these chat rooms on Skype. It's hard to keep up. Okay, let's see here. A lot of nonsense. Let's move up and get a list of those new hosts that I'm working on at Awake Radio. One is going to be Pierce Redmond, and I'm going to be replaying his show right before my show here on Friday nights. So he'll be on Friday nights at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Another one is Chuck O'Celli. Got him coming on the show. We're going to have him 5 nights a week, a replay of the show that he does on American Freedom Radio. Another one is, you know what? I can't find any of these things. Is Nick Drago from Nick of Time. Another one is this new guy, who I forget his name at the moment. Man, I can't seem to find it here in this list of stuff. With the people put so much crap in these chat rooms. It's annoying as hell. People, what the hell is this? Anyway, I got a whole bunch of hosts coming. Chris Milligan from Trine Day Press. He's going to be doing a show. And these guys from Staten Island who interviewed me once, and they want to come on the show. And they got a nice little show there, too. So we'll have them on. And I just got to work out the scheduling. If there's somebody out there that wants to volunteer and help out, I need someone to help me out to broadcast the shows. Because either I'm going to have to get a dedicated computer here and then devote a lot of my personal time to doing this. But if you can help, if you have some spare time during the week, or that you can guarantee us at the same time each week, where you can upload a show and play it over the server for us, it's just about 2 hours of your time during the week to do that. If you like Chuck's show or something like that, like Pierce Redmond's show, and you want to broadcast that show, I can teach you how to do it. It's not a big deal, but we're looking for volunteers for that. Okay, let's see. What else is going on here? Right before the show, I got an email about Sarah Palin's son, Track. And you might recall that, a few months back, he was, but yeah, it was, you know what it was, man? It was the night before Sarah Palin was brought onto the Trump campaign to go stump for Trump. And she had that big speech she wanted to do for Trump. The first time she's come out of hiding from her alcoholism, whatever she's up to. And her son, Track, the night before, got arrested for domestic violence, I believe, with an assault rifle, an AR-15 or an AK-47 or something like that. He had, he's waving it around and threatening people, and he got arrested for it, which is really tough to get. For a Palin to get arrested in Alaska is a really big deal. It's not easy at all. And she tried to make an excuse and saying, "Oh, well, it's really Obama's fault because he has PTSD, because he's not appreciated, because he's a veteran," right? That was Palin's theory. But then it came out that when he was I think it was Iraq or wherever he was serving, that he had a really cushy job and he didn't have to do anything. So anyway, they just came up with a plea deal with the DA in Anchorage, Alaska, on Track Palin's case. These domestic violence and possession of a weapon and while intoxicated and all kind of charges he had there. And all he's going to have to do is plead guilty to the lowest charge and do a little therapy. Not even drug rehab or anger management. It's some private therapy he's going to get to do. So good old Track Palin got some real cushy stuff there. You might have noticed out there's some funny stuff going on in the past few days. There's a Facebook article that's being passed around about how NASA is just revealing that there is an chromosome or an ingredient or DNA in marijuana that proves that marijuana is from space. It's an alien plant. You know? And so people, and I saw this, and I looked at it and I laughed. I said, you know what? Anytime an article, when you see an article on Facebook and someone is sharing this article, right? And whenever it says NASA admits or NASA confirms, right? You know it's total BS. Okay? It's just like anything on these crazy articles you see on Facebook and stuff like that, or Twitter, where it says Putin says this or Putin says that. I got news for you. Anytime Putin mentions the United States in any kind of statement in Russia, it gets reported here, okay? That is crazy. Putin is going to reveal the Rothschilds. Putin's kicking out the Russians. Putin says he has Hillary's emails. All that stuff is insane, guys, okay? And anything Putin says gets reported here in the United States. Trust me on that. All that stuff, these quotes of Putin are complete nonsense. But the alien marijuana hoax, guys, I hate to break your heart here, but it's a complete hoax. It's nonsense, okay? Was actually written by Corey Leviton, who was a guest on this show, who's a local Vegas guy here, and a fellow Howard Stern fun guy. And he also did he wrote the article about how they found human sperm in milk, which also got circulated by everybody, as reality. But anyway, so this, if you're looking around, this thing here with what do you call it, alien DNA found in marijuana, and NASA confirms it. That's a joke, and it's written by Corey Leviton, who's a friend of mine, and was a guest on this show. He's another local character. He's friends with Sarah Jane Woodhall too. We should have a little get together, all of us. Sarah's out in the wilderness right now. She's going on a prolonged camping trip, sharing all her stuff like that. So check out Sarah Jane Woodhall at wonderhussy.com. A lot of fun. Tonight, as a matter of fact, it just started at 7 p.m. here on the Las Vegas Strip. There is a Black Lives Matter march out in front of Cromwell, which is across from Bellagio. Normally we have them out in front of Bellagio, but it's at Cromwell across the street, which is next to Dre's. So local people would know where to find that. Now, there's also, too, we can go back to all the stuff, the nonsense you see on Facebook and people spreading YouTube and craziness and silliness, is this whole thing about how somehow Black Lives Matter is funded by George Soros, right? Now, and we even had a guest tonight who just claimed that, George Soros, and he was saying that George Soros. What a funny accent he was saying, but it's George Soros. We can talk in American English, right? The theory is that I think the first guy to come up with this nonsense was Bill O'Reilly. And Bill O'Reilly claimed that he had a guest on his show that said that George Soros funded Black Lives Matter with $33 million. Okay? And then it's been repeated ever since then. And I even saw an article recently where they said that he funded Black Lives Matter with $303 million. So I guess people don't, as long as there's a 3 in there, right? It's close enough. Hey. So, I don't know. You know me, I'm a silly goose, right? And I've actually tried to look into this. And I found out the editor of the Daily Beast actually investigated this. He contacted the Soros Foundation. And they claim that they have given no money to Black Lives Matter at all. But that a couple of their employees actually were involved in the hashtag Black Lives Matter. Okay, so now I'm in touch with the Soros Foundation, with their press department, and they're going to give me a statement, and we're going to record something with them. I'm also in touch with the attorney for Black Lives Matter, who has her own group called Lawyers Matter. And she's the local one here in Vegas, and I'm in touch with her. We're going to have her on the show as well, okay, to get to the bottom of this and find out what's really going on without just repeating nonsense over and over. Like when I was looking into this whole thing about the idea that Soros is funding Black Lives Matter, and I Googled it like everybody else does, and all you see is, well, it's widely known, it's widely understood that Soros is funding Black, and then when you try and trace it back, you find out it goes nowhere but to this Bill O'Reilly nonsense, and it's a bunch of crap. I've marched with Black Lives Matter, here in Vegas, and they don't have, a budget or a checking account or an office. They have nothing. And as a matter of fact, the 4 or 5 marches we've gone to have all been led by different people, different leaders, who ragtag know each other, and we all kind of show up to each other's marches and stuff. But there's no centralized, or that it's a terrorist organization, that there's some kind of centralized governance over this. It's a bunch of crap. And as far as, sometimes I just want to give up. Sometimes I really want to give up. I really do. But the other thing, too, is as far as the Soros Foundation, I forget what it's called right now, and I have it in front of me, but him being able to funnel money, there's tax forms and there's accounting that has to be produced. You don't send $300 million. They're not sending $300 million in cash in suitcases to these people. It's a bunch of nonsense, guys. I'm about to give up with all this crap. Hey, it's a tidal wave of BS that can't be fought. Because people want to believe the lies. They just want to believe stupidity and any kind of nonsense they hear. You're afraid of black people, okay? I don't. Maybe I would have been afraid of black people. I grew up in the Bronx. I grew up with black people. But maybe I'd be afraid too if I only saw them on TV. You're afraid of the UN. I grew up in New York. The UN was there. My father's friend worked at the UN. I dated a girl who was there's such craziness. I dated a girl who was a delegate. She worked for Sudan at the UN, and I dated her before she started working there, and I'm so, whoa, the UN's so scary. Oh, this picture's of UN trucks. Oh my God. The same exact picture. Everyone's reporting this UN truck, in every freaking city in every state all over the country. Oh, but no one bothers to check and see if it's the same picture, being reported in Texas and North Carolina and Florida all at the same time. Hey, so I'm getting a little sick of this nonsense. Okay. All right, nice little tidbit came out this week. Really good information, some reality for you. David K. Johnston, okay, really cool guy, hardworking guy. I think he works for the Daily Beast. Yeah, the Daily Beast. And doing some good work over there. He's been writing some stuff about Trump. He wrote a couple of books about Trump. Really good. In fact, the guy's a Pulitzer Prize. I think he won a Pulitzer Prize, I think. Let me double check my notes here. Really good guy. Yeah, Pulitzer Prize winning investigative journalist, and also a best-selling author because of his book about Trump. He reported some stuff this week that should be headline news. My God. A presidential candidate and his kids are named in a $250 million tax scam. Did you know that, guys? Okay, did you know that? I've been working on this too, man, okay? This is some good stuff. This is some good stuff, man. Now, they're named as material witnesses. And this, by the way, there's this really weird thing about this lawsuit. Let me see if I can find this, because it's different. I've never seen this before. Let me just find this in the article here. But you can find this on the Daily Beast. It's a great article. There's some way that civil attorneys can file this lawsuit on behalf of, I guess, New York State tax collection. I should have put together a little summary on this, but it's something I've never seen before. But it's the simplest thing. And if there was some kind of legitimate justice in this country, Trump would get convicted on this thing, because there's definitely tax avoidance here. There's no doubt about that. Let's see if I can find this thing about how it works. Well, anyway, basically what it is this, man, is Trump and his daughter and one of his sons were involved in these partnerships, like these real estate partnerships, and they were paid fees and partnership interests and all this kind of stuff like that, right? For these deals that they were putting together with this guy who's a real character. Wait till we get to him in a minute. This guy, Sater. That's his first name here. Who lives in Trump Tower, by the way. Yeah, all I can find is his last name, Sater. I can't find his first name. Let me start over at the beginning of this thing. I should have put some notes together on this, but sorry, guys. Yeah, this is his last name, Sater. Anyway, they formed these partnerships with this guy, Sater. And they were involved in a bunch of development deals. And how it works is, like in New York State, right? If you have an LLC or a corporation, right? The state of New York will report your tax information to the federal government, right? Now, in Nevada, they don't do that, by the way, okay? Which is interesting. And then a couple other states, they don't do it, too. One little kind of tax kind of advice for you there. Okay. Yeah. But the thing is that with partnerships, there's no reporting for partnerships. You don't have to report your taxes anywhere, because it's assumed that the principals in the partnership are going to report those taxes in their personal tax returns. Okay, so there's no like auditing or anything like that. A lot of tax stuff is what see. Most people who pay their taxes, and I'm going to do a whole thing on this in the future too, about debt collection, how to avoid debt collectors, and how to weave your way through the tax system and stuff like that. But the thing is most businesses and companies, you only pay tax on what you tell them you made. You're voluntarily giving your information to them. You could lie on that information. Of course, you get in trouble if you get caught, but you could lie. Whereas most people who work for a living, it's your company reports what they're paying you, and they withhold from you based on how many kids you tell them you have and the deductions you tell them you have. So it's a whole different system. So in a partnership, if you're in a partnership with somebody, you're only going to pay tax on what you tell them you're making, because otherwise they have no way of knowing. See, people don't realize this, that the IRS has very little way of knowing what you, because I do asset searches. I look for people's assets. I look for their income. I know how this stuff works. Okay? And this is one of my talents, too. I'm good at this. Not to blow my own horn, but I am good at it. So unless you tell them, they really don't know. And it's the same thing, too, by the way, with banks and credit card companies. They can't see your tax returns. They only go by what you tell them what you make. Okay, that's what they base their stuff on. They might do this little comparative. If you can't say to one company you make 10,000, and then fill out another credit report and say you make 150,000. That's going to turn up. But you can get away with this kind of stuff. Anyway, so this is very simple. This Trump scam, because they made hundreds of millions of dollars here and never reported the income. That's what happened here. And now this isn't me saying this. This was all just unsealed. This lawsuit was unsealed Thursday. And it describes the scheme as simple, telling the judge there need be no fear of complexity, for there is none. They had a partnership. These partners made income. They did not report the income. That's it. And there's a flow chart here that describes the whole $250,000. Now, the thing is, the Trumps are described as material witnesses against this guy Sater. But the Trumps are doing it too. The same thing. They're all doing it. So this is going to come up. But now it's odd because it's a civil lawsuit on behalf of the tax collectors, on behalf of the New York State Attorney General. Which it can be done. There's a legal description of how this is done. I've never heard of it before, and I've never seen it before. Now, this guy, Sater, is a super sleazy character, even beyond Trump and his family. This guy, the reason why this case is unsealed is because Sater filed an action against a rabbi who says he was cheated in a $40 million stock swindle. Okay? And this involves the Genovese and Gambino crime families, okay? And his big, giant $40 million scam. This guy Sater's involved in a ton of scams. In 1998, he pled guilty in federal court, but the plea was kept secret. Sater was sentenced in secret in 2009 to probation and a $25,000 fine with no jail time and no requirement to make restitution in a $40 million scam. Now, there's a book about this Sater guy. And by the way, Sater had an office at Trump. He lives at Trump Tower. He lives in Trump Tower. But he had an office with the Trump organization and a business card that said he was one of Trump's advisors and consultants. He was also convicted of shoving a broken stem of a margarita glass into a man's face. He got 2 years for that. It was way back in 1991. But there's a book about this guy, Sater. It's called The Frog and the Scorpion. No. The Scorpion and the Frog. The true story of one man's fraudulent rise and fall on the Wall Street of the 90s. Now, I was back in New York City, right, in the 90s. And there were a lot of characters there making money, on Wall Street. All kinds of scams they were running. Even the Crazy Eddie that ran the Crazy Eddie electronics store was involved in all this kind of stuff. Anyway, but it turns out this guy Sater, okay, after his arrest became an operative for the CIA, supposedly buying missiles on their way to terrorists. Okay. Guys, this is in the Daily Beast. This is not a flyby. This is not the marijuana. NASA says marijuana comes from space. Okay? This is some serious stuff here. So anyway, we got to look into this. I'm going to have this guy come on the show. He says he's working on another book. It's probably about Trump. David K. Johnston, Daily Beast. Donald Trump and his kids named in $250 million tax scam. Okay? How's that? Is that some news for you? Am I doing my job? Have you heard that anywhere else tonight, guys? Anywhere? Nah. Just but from the Silly Goose. Just from the Silly Goose. Okay, we'll get back here and play some commercials. And we'll get back here and see if I can make it through the next half hour. Some new ads. Tell me how you like them. In honor of Sean Duff. And now a word from our sponsors. Did you know that 30% of all people on online dating websites and personal ads are either married or in a monogamous relationship? 30%. If you suspect that your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend may be cheating online, go to emailrevealer.com. On our online infidelity investigation. You give us their email address, and we can trace it back to online personal ads, dating sites, and social networks. We can even expand the investigation and find them cheating on escort service sites or even porn sites if they're registered to porn sites and swinger sites. So check out emailrevealer.com if you suspect your spouse is cheating, and check out our online infidelity investigation. William Ramsey is a producer here at the Opperman Report, and he's just come out with a new book, Children of the Beast, Aleister Crowley's Shadow Over Humanity. Now, he just sent me a copy of this book. Oh boy, it's about 2 inches thick, and there's a chapter on just about everybody in this book that you can imagine. The Beatles, and Jack Parsons, everybody's in here. It's incredible. And I definitely recommend this book. There's a bunch of pictures in here, too, of all these people and different chapters and information. Anton LaVey and people I've never heard of, too. There's a whole bunch in here. JFC Fuller. I don't know who he is. But it's great stuff by our producer here, William Ramsey. So check out Children of the Beast, Aleister Crowley's Shadow Over Humanity. You can find it on Amazon.com, or you could find it in the Opperman Report.com bookstore. We have an urgent bulletin. It seems that the group Strawman is still on the loose. It has been confirmed that Strawman are Canadian, okay, and that authorities are asking people to stay indoors, lock your doors and windows until this group can be dealt with. You could find more information about this group of Canadians, at strawmanmusic.com. You can have your ad played here. Okay, we're looking for sponsors. Okay, in fact, we desperately need sponsors right now to take this show to the next level. So you can have your your ad played here, read live, like I'm doing now, so artfully. Or we can even work up a little jingle for you with some music and stuff like that and play it here. You have no idea how inexpensive it would be to have your ad played on the Opperman Report on 7 stations live Friday night and another 7 stations live on Saturday night, plus replayed every day of the week on different stations, and then archived on YouTube, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and all different kinds of podcasts, Pod This and Podbean, all different kinds of places who archive the show for us. And on those archives, your ad would play indefinitely, forever. You also get a little banner on OppermanReport.com. You get a mention on the air, you get a little interview on the air, and all kinds of fun stuff if you sponsor Opperman Report. We have an opportunity to get this show on a major AM/FM station in California. We've been approved. So if you want to sponsor us into that, so incredibly inexpensive that your ad would be heard by the range covers 5 million people in population where your ad would be broadcast, and all these other stations would be thrown in for free. So really affordable prices to sponsor oppermanreport.com. Get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You can get a copy of that book at emailrevealer.com, or you can get a copy of that book now. It's back up on Amazon.com. How to Become a Successful Private Investigator by Ed Opperman. And this book has been updated a little bit from the previous book that we had that was available to our wonderful listeners. Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator, Ed Opperman. And okay, there we go. Okay, I didn't see my audio bumping up that little green light there. Okay, I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. I want to thank some people out there who contacted me about last week's show, and I read the handwritten civil rights lawsuit that was written by Eric Garner, the man who was famous for pleading "I can't breathe" there on Staten Island. He was being choked to death by New York's finest. It really feels good, when people can pick up what I'm trying to share with you, and a lot of times it's interesting too, because I ran into some people the next day, who had heard the show, and I was all in a good mood and happy and stuff, and I says, "Oh boy, we heard you last night. You sounded so upset. We thought we were going to see you today, and you're going to be all, crying," And, I have a life of my own. Anyway, where are we going with tonight's show? Where are we going? The name of tonight's show is They're Sharpening Their Knives on the Concrete. Let's get back to work here. Damn it. Okay. All right. I tell these stories. I share these stories with you, okay? Like last week with Eric Garner, with Carry My Shoes, the story Carrying My Shoes, right? I share these stories as I work on these shows, on these Friday night live shows where I tell these stories and stuff like that, and I take notes. And the plan is to share a story with you, an experience in my life that then applies to the point I'm trying to get across. Now, a lot of people get this, what I'm doing, and I'll hear from them with the Eric Garner show. But a lot of times it just goes way over your head. It goes not everybody's head, but it goes over a lot of people's head, and just like a satellite, miles above the earth. Okay, it misses the point. For example, I'm trying to tell the story last week, and some guy says, "Well, Ed, Eric Garner stole a cigar that day. Why don't you mention that?" Okay, because we don't mention that because I don't think it's okay to kill people for stealing cigars. Is one reason. I told the story Carrying My Shoes. It was kind of like that story was meant to be an apology for my life. And someone will say, "Well, Ed, bill fighting is not cool." So I understand there's limitations to what we're doing here with this show. And I'm not going to get through to everybody every single week. I'm not going to hit a home run every week. Okay. I'm going to do my best. I do my work. I'll tell you that, man. Don't tell me I don't do my work. No one else is telling you about this Trump lawsuit tonight that I told you about. No one else is investigating this Black Lives Matter story. Now, the stories I tell on the show, when we get to story time, okay, which is just about where we are now, these are stories I've told many times in my life. Okay, and you go out on a date, I tell the story, Carrying My Shoes. I'll tell that story. And I'll call it the Carrying My Shoes story. And, also, too, I have friends, I've told these stories to, and then later on, we'll joke about it. Now, I've been through some rough times in my life. Okay? And I'm not going to kid you, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it to you. This week was a very discouraging week because of the Bernie Sanders sellout, of endorsing Hillary. Now, one issue I have with that is that people coming up and saying, I told you so. Well, I told you so, Ed, and all along, because the Rothschilds and the Federal Reserve, and I'm going to, oh, no, I mean, you got all this expertise about what's going on, that you want to share with me. And thank you. I appreciate it, But I like to look at facts and reliable sources is how I live my life. Okay? Now, maybe I didn't mention it on the radio to you, but last week before the Orlando, was it Orlando? Yeah, I think it was Orlando convention with the Democrats. The platform committee meetings there, I had a copy of that. I have a copy of that platform before the public had it, before it was presented at the convention last week. Because I have sources, okay, that send me these things and talk to me and tell me things, okay? A lot of people that are Bernie supporters are aware of this phone call that went out last week to delegates right after he did that endorsement of Hillary and saying, well, he didn't, notice that he did not suspend his campaign, notice that, and he had to do this just to get to the convention because Hillary controls the convention. Okay, I know people firsthand, okay, that were on that phone call and that I can contact and say, okay, tell me about that phone call. Did it really happen? Okay, and what I'm being told is by people who know, okay, by the way, the people who know that Hillary's already picked her VP. It's going to be that guy Castro, that guy from Texas, with the twin brother. So I get information. I can't share everything with you as it comes in, and which is one of the very frustrating things for me, okay, by the way. And I even mentioned on Facebook tonight, I said, people that know me for 35 years don't get me, And what I'm trying to get across to you is that I know stuff and I'm involved in stuff that I can't talk about on the air. And it's really, I'm isolating myself more and more. There's less and less people that I can talk about these things to because it overlaps with my PI work and my radio show work that I get involved in these stories and cases and stuff like that. But as a private investigator, then I can't talk about it on the air, So there's a lot of frustrations for me here, and I feel more and more isolated as time goes on. But I'm trying to work around this. And but where I am right now, I have very few people I can talk to about what I know. Okay, so maybe I didn't tell you last week that I had a copy of this the platform proposal, before anybody else did. But this is stuff that's going on here with me. I'm still trying to work all this out. Okay, and I believe people trust me, and I'm doing the best I can. Now, if we're all sitting in a room and we're working on a project together, right? We want to build a boat, let's say, right? And there's one guy over in the corner room, or maybe there's 10 people over, or half the people, or a quarter of the people in the room are sitting around saying, it's never going to happen. It's never going to work. It's going to fail. And then as soon as it does fail, I told you so it failed. I told you. Part of the reason why it failed is because, first of all, you're not contributing to any help. You're not trying to create progress. You're not trying to make something work. Okay? And then to say, well, I told you so it failed. Part of the reason why it failed is because of you. Okay? And that you're not trying to fight back and trying to progress and trying to make an effort. Do you understand that? You're part of the problem. When you have this mindset that we can't do anything, we can't fight back, it's a foregone conclusion. Bernie was in on it all along. Now, I'm still holding back a little bit here on what I know on as far as Bernie was in and on all along. But I can tell you this much. I know for an absolute fact that way back in February here in Nevada, Bernie thought he was going to win. Bernie thought he was going to win Nevada. And Bernie and Jane thought that they were going to win the election. They thought the momentum was theirs and they were going to take it. They weren't in on some big act and some big play. Okay? And I could testify to that in court. Now, I know that there was a lot of infiltration into the campaign by the Hillary people. I had Nico House on the show for a reason, guys. I'm trying to lay stuff out for you for a reason of what I know, that I can't talk about everything I know. And if you want to tell me you have some information, some source, and some information that you can share with me that I can look at and study, and I can say, oh, so-and-so has information. Look at this. Okay? I want to do that. But this business that, well, let's all fix it, and I know this, and all that, and blah, blah, blah. Give me a break with that stuff, man. Okay? Okay? We're talking about reality here. I'm talking on the phone with people who were at the convention. They're not in on the big act that you think is a big act. And if we had more people fighting this stuff, we would win. This show could have made a difference in this election. I'm telling you guys, this show could have made a difference in this election. And I could point it out to you. The Sally Miller stuff, okay, because it was reported elsewhere, okay, and getting this show on in California could have made a big difference in California. There's a lot of stuff we could have done that I'm very frustrated about. So, yeah, I don't know. Might be hopeless. But let's see how much time we got left. 14 minutes. I'm not sure where I want to take this and where I want to go with this. Boy, there's just so much here, man. You know, I don't even know how I can get all this out. This becomes so frustrating, I have no idea. You know, okay, you can tell I'm very upset right now and I'm very frustrated right now. The title of this show is they're sharpening their knives on the concrete. Okay? Now, I'm not going to kid you. I've been through some really tough times in my life. I've been through some big fights in my life. Okay? And up until the custody thing with Victoria in 2005, the biggest event in my life was, and I've talked about it before, it's in my book, and I got some videos too. I've been on TV with this in New York. I don't talk about it much on this show, but I was facing 15 years in a maximum security prison back in around 1990. And it was a whole big deal. I'm going to tell you the whole story one day. I'm going to write a book about it and do a film about it and all that. And it's a long story. It takes 40 minutes to tell that story. You know, and I have a really good video of me telling it in a church one time. It's a really good video. I was young and handsome, you know, in a suit. I look good, man. Those are the days. Where has time gone? Where's time gone? I could have done so much. But the point is I've told these stories, you know, and then people that know me that have heard the stories before, you know, they'll say, you know, when we're out dinner with new people, they'll say, Ed, tell the stories about you know. And when I tell that story about me facing 15 years in prison, and the part about sharpening our knives in the concrete was that we had negotiated the deal down to like a year. We were going to do a year in prison. And by the way, this is like one of the worst prisons in the country, too, they were going to send me to. Florence Prison in Arizona, where they filmed that movie, Stir Crazy, with Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor. And so, you know, once I knew I was going to do this time, if I would have took the deal, I sent word in, you know, to people I knew in that prison, you know, to say, well, you know, how will I be welcomed there when I show up? Because, you know, I've made a lot of enemies in my life, you know. There's no secret of that. I make new ones every day. And word came back out, well, Ed, they're sharpening their knives on the concrete waiting for you. So they want to kill me when I got in there. Okay? Which is, you know, I don't know. Maybe you've heard that in your life. Ed, you're going to prison. And Ed, when you get here, they're going to kill you. Okay, maybe that's something you've experienced as well. Okay, but it's something I've experienced, and it's something I've lived with. And when I tell the story, people are affected by it, of course. But then later on, as you get to know these people, and I'll joke around about it. So it's sort of like Niagara Falls, they were sharpening their knives on a concrete waiting for, I say, 15 years in a maximum security prison, kind of as a joke. And you know what? I would love to tell that story, so many people will misunderstand it, it's just such a burden. Dealing with, as the show grows, we've grown enormously in the past couple of months, but and then you have that small percentage that just doesn't get what you're talking about, doesn't understand what you're talking about. They miss it. They miss the whole point of what I'm trying to say. Enough people understand that I know I'm not just rambling like I am tonight. The point of that is I'm trying to explain it to you, okay? That I've faced discouragement in my life, okay? And I have experienced insurmountable odds in my life, okay? That was the fight of my life up until 2005, okay? That was the fight of my life. And when I tell you the whole story and you hear the whole thing, you won't believe it. Okay, I took on everybody, okay? But the fight of my life was, my little daughter, Victoria, when I lost custody of my kid. And I lost every penny I had in my pocket. Every penny I accumulated in my life was taken from me. And that was the fight of my life. After that. And it was 10 times worse. But this week, like everyone else, when I saw Bernie, I've lived for a revolution. I've lived to be a revolutionary, And when I first saw Bernie come along, I said, well, listen, it's not going to happen, because, Clinton's too powerful, and he'll get 25% of the vote. But it's good. I would tell Victoria, because she's, young and enthusiastic, and I would tell her, no, but it's still good, because we'll take those people, and we'll organize those people that are behind Bernie. We'll go meet them, and we'll organize with them, and this will be the foundation of the real revolution. And then when I went to the first rally, it was at the debate, and we marched around with these people. These people knew what was going on. These were smart people, man, and they knew what was going on. And I was really, really impressed, And more and more as I met these Bernie people, I was very, very impressed. Now, I know you all, but just cynicals because you know that the marijuana comes from space because NASA said so, and Black Lives Matter, but Soros doesn't. All that stuff, all that great information you got, right? Right? Oh, Bernie was in on it. Because you got this great information that I don't have access to. If you have it, send it to me. I'd love to hear it. Okay? And the other thing, too, I'm not getting anywhere with this tonight. I'm not getting anywhere with this tonight. Too bad. I had a really good story here that I was going to tell you, but it's not going to work. Okay. Oh, boy, what a frustrating night this is. Hey. Okay. I know there's listen, I sat there. I didn't even wake Victoria up, too, man, when I watched Bernie making that endorsement, And I was just as upset as everybody else that saw it. Because it was like a sellout move. It was a sellout move. It wasn't as bad as Elizabeth Warren's sellout move. But it was a sellout move. But then you hear, he just hasn't suspended his campaign, and we're still fighting to the convention, And the other thing, too, is so many people who did become involved in this process right away. Well, I'm fleeing the process. I'm giving up. Now I'm going to go with Jill Stein. See, a lot of the stuff the Clintons got away with at the ground level in the Democratic Party could have been prevented if we had as many people in there as she did. Now they've been working on this, for 25 years, the Clinton machine, the political machine. But the thing is, see, we can, and oh my God, there's so much. I'm so frustrated with this. The Bernie people were convinced they were going to win, and we can vote out the rascals on one level if we get off our butts and get in there into the Democratic committee and the Democratic Party and take those volunteer positions and work for those paid positions and take over the party, take the party back from these evil, greedy thieves. Okay? It can be done, but we're too lazy, And people just want to say, well, it's impossible and it can't be done. It's because we're too lazy and we're not doing the work, That's why they're winning and we're losing. Not because of this Anunnaki masters of the universe over us that control everything. Because I can tell you firsthand, okay, that's not the case, man. I saw it with the Sarah Palin thing, and I see it on so many levels here. And I see how people that were activists are selling out. There's so much this is so frustrating. There's no way to do this. And there's no way to do this live like this and explain to you what's going on. It's impossible. It's impossible. Anyway, I'm going to end the show. Okay? I'd probably be better off if they'd get me in there and stick a shiv in my back in the shower. I'm going to have to deal with all this crap. Okay, tomorrow we're going to have this guy on, Dunn, about Tom Dunn, but his new film he's been working on for many years. It might turn out, too, that he can only do an hour. So and William Ramsey was supposed to do the second hour about his book, but then it turns out he can't do that either. So I may be alone for an hour tomorrow. Maybe I can get my thoughts together and come back with this and do a better job on this Trump lawsuit with the tax evasion. Anyway, guys, thank you so much. If you can help me out, because I did take on this project of working on Awake and trying to get that going. I need some people who can. I'll teach you how to use SAM. It's simple, and all you got to do is the hosts who won't be live, broadcasting live, we'll send you the MP3, and you could just play it during their scheduled slot during the week. Also, too, if you want to do a show, get a hold of me, too. I'm interested in hosts or producers, people want to help produce and stuff. I'll teach you how to do it. It's all simple. There's nothing rocket science here. All right, guys? Anyway, listen, I really do love you, and I'm sorry that I get so frustrated in all this. It's hard to explain. There's a lot going on. That the stuff I want to tell you that I can't tell you, stuff that I'm putting off, and new information coming into me that it's making me more isolated every week. And anyway, let's get back to let's see, Dancing with the Stars. All right, guys, good night.